Have you ever wanted to remove something from your photo? It could be some of your friends, it could be some random people on the beach, or just some people standing in the way in a mountain when you wanted that perfect shot, but they just wouldn't move. Well, here are 4 different ways of how you can remove people or things inside of Photoshop. So let me show you how it works. Alright, so we're just briefly starting inside of Lightroom because that's where I like to import my photos to Photoshop from. Just to make it easier and to make Lightroom our library for all of these things, as they work really well together. And the reason we're not using Lightroom for this, there is a healing tool over here, but it's really clunky and it doesn't really work that well. It works for like small adjustments and stuff, but Photoshop is so much more powerful, so you'll rather use that, to be honest. So let's just jump straight into Photoshop. How we do that is that we have our image here where we want to remove these 2 people. And we just hit Command E, similar shortcut on Windows, and now we have our photo inside of Photoshop as a copy. Now, what I want to do is show you 4 different ways that you can remove these 2 people, the one sitting on the bench here and the one photographing them, because I frankly don't think that they look very good in the frame, so I just want to remove those guys. I'll do 4 copies of the layer on this one, just to show you the 4 different tools. So the ones that we are going through today is the spot healing tool, the healing brush. I actually think the first one is called spot healing brush tool, but never mind. The patch tool and the select object. So these are the 4 that we are going to work with. So let's just get started. Let's do the spot healing tool as the first one. You find the healing tools over here with this icon, and you can right click and find the different ones. So the first 4 ones we're doing are the spot healing brush tool, that's the first one, second one healing brush tool, and then the patch tool as the last one. So let's begin. We are now zooming in a little bit, and I will adjust my brush slightly by holding down Control Option and then dragging to the side. And now I just simply paint over this guy who's standing here, and then Photoshop just removes him. Very nice. If we look at this, you can see that he is just removed. Now it's important to make another layer before you start doing this, because you want to keep your original file in case you want to go back and do something different. So now I don't think it did a perfect job down here, so maybe if we click again, you can see that it kind of just tries to adjust what we're doing. Can go back if we don't want it to do that, and just make the brush a little bit smaller again. Just trying to get rid of that small peck of whatever it is, and it just doesn't want to do that. Sometimes that happens. There we go. Getting a little bit better. No. Anyway, let's jump further into this guy, and I'll show you with one of the other tools how we can get rid of that small piece if we want to do that. So let's make the brush a little bit bigger again, and we are just brushing over him, trying not to hit all of the bench, and Photoshop just removes him perfectly. And that's the first really easy way. And if we zoom out, you can barely see that there's anything wrong with the bench down there. So that is the first way that we can just remove these 2 guys. Let's see how it works. So just boom, didn't take a lot of time. Now the next one, let's jump straight into that. So I'm hiding this one, and now we're jumping into the healing brush. So I can just click Shift J because I'm already on it, and that will just switch to the next tool in the row, which is the healing brush tool that we're doing now. Now what's different with this one is that this one is actually patching from what's near it. So if I hold down Option, I select a point where I want to copy from. So let's select something around here, and you have different options up here. So the normal mode will just try and blend it, and the replace mode, these are the 2 that I normally use, will replace it completely. So let me show you what that means really quickly. So if we have the normal mode on, you can see that now we're just painting, and the small cross there are showing us what we are painting over from. So just see we're just getting this removed, and we can patch it up again and just do it like this. And then maybe we want to hit this one here and just paint above this one, and that's pretty much it. Now we just remove this guy. This guy over here might be a little bit more difficult, but let's try and see if we can do a similar job. Just using this one, and then maybe just want to extend this out a little bit. Maybe go even further back, and sometimes a little bit difficult to hit the right one. And let's make the brush smaller, like so, and just try and see if we can get rid of the last small pieces here. Sometimes you have to work around the small cross there, because that's showing you where you select. See, oops, I went too far in. And this can take a little bit of work to master, and you can also just do it with the other one, the other tool, which could sometimes just help you. Now you can see this gets all smudgy because we're actually just replacing a whole like painting on top of what we had already. But if we go to replace instead, we can select this part, and then you'll see that when we draw it now, we're actually just painting directly what we are having. So we're just copying directly what we have where the cross is, which doesn't necessarily look very good, but we can go back to the spot healing brush here and just paint over some of these areas that are not looking that good, that are a little bit smudgy, and just click a little bit around to remove some of those edges. And it didn't do a perfect job, but you get the point. It can work, and it worked pretty perfect over here. This is why I'm showing you 4 tools. Sometimes it's better to use one and another. And this kind of looks a little bit weird now. So one thing that we could do as well is go into replace, go into this one, replace, and then have this one, and then maybe paint another leg in here, just like that. And now we've ruined that over there a little bit, so we can go back to the spot healing brush and do it like so. Doesn't look perfect. This is just for the example. This doesn't look very good either, but now we have more or less fixed it. And if you zoom out, you'll never know that there had been anything else in that photo. So that's one way. So we have, this was our first attempt, and this was our second attempt. So pretty good, I think. Now we have the patch tool, which is the third one. So let's zoom in again and choose the patch tool. You can also hit Shift J. And what this does is that you actually draw around what you want to remove. So let's just see if we can draw around this, and then you can drag it away. So now I just have to be a little bit careful. And because it sets to normal up here, then it will try to replace it as good as it can. And it actually did a very good job right here, you can see. Let's see if that works better than the second option we had over here. One thing that can be a little bit tricky can be to paint around this sometimes. Let's see if this works. Let's drag it to the side. And we need to drag it a little bit further, like so. And I think that actually did a pretty good job. You can see that there's a little bit of mistakes. You could keep using the patch tool, or you could, as we did before, go back to the spot healing brush, just click a little bit around, maybe try and adjust this a little bit, just basically clicking a little bit in those areas that looks a little bit too much like they've been patched. And by doing this, you actually just removed these two people as well. Now there is a little bit of difference in the colors here. So what we could do be that we could try and paint over that with, for example, using the healing brush again, and then just getting this a little bit in there. And to be honest, this doesn't look much better. So let's just go back and say that you get the point. You can use different ones. So you can see that I think our best attempt so far has pretty much been the first one, the spot healing tool for this one. Now the last one is the select object tool. So that's actually on a different one. So that's up here. It might, as a default, be set to quick select up here, but you can also use the key W as a shortcut to get there. But this is the object select tool, and this spinning wheel will start when you click it the first time and it'll just figure out what kind of objects there are. So when we hover above them right now, you can see that they turn purple because it recognizes these as objects. So what we can do to remove these from this one is that we can click on this guy. You can see it kind of perfectly actually just selects him. But just to make sure that we get everything around him, we will go to select and then modify and then expand. I usually expand with 3 to 5 pixels. Click OK, and you can see now it just expanded to click outside of him as well. Then we right click and we hit content aware fill. And that will give us the option to just try and remove him. And I think this looks like it actually did a pretty good job. You have the green area here, so you can actually just say, oh, this guy is not supposed to be what we're using, and then recalibrate. Didn't do much of a change, but then we can hit OK and hit Command D to deselect again. Now we have this selection over here. So to remove the other guy, we need to go back to our other layer and do the same thing. So we click on this guy and we hit select up here, modify, expand, 5 pixels, right click, content aware fill, and pretty much just remove him as well. Command D to deselect, and there we have it. Now we have 3 different layers now, so these are just hiding, basically just painting on top. So what we can do is we can highlight all of these, click on the first one, hold down shift and click on the top one, hit Command J to duplicate all of them, and then right click, go down to merge layers, and now we can hide all these. Now we have our selection here. And as with the other ones, you can go and use some of the other tools to adjust whatever you want, but this is basically 4 different ways on how you can remove something inside of Photoshop. Super easy, super quick. Sometimes one tool works better than the others. Sometimes you just gotta work around with them a little bit. Sometimes you need to replace, sometimes it's fine with the normal mode, but these are different ways that you can use and you can have them work together. So what I usually do is use one of the last 3 tools, and then I'll go and use the spot healing brush at the end, just to kind of like patch things up a little bit, make sure that everything looks nice. And I think that did almost a pretty good job. You can always just zoom in a little bit, hold down space to zoom in. Now this is annoying me a little bit that we can't get, that looks a lot better. And now if we zoom in all the way, you can see that there are a little bit of imperfection, but it actually is around all of the photo, so that's probably not from what we've done here. And now we have more or less just perfectly removed these 2 subjects from our photo, and that works with more or less anything. Plants, buildings, like just use your imagination. Photoshop has come really far in terms of removing things and using that content aware fill. So that's 4 different ways on how you can remove subjects or objects from your photos and how they work together as well. So I really hope that this helped you. If you click Command S and save now, you can just see that it's saving up here, and we then jump into Lightroom as soon as it is done, and that takes a little bit like so. Jump into Lightroom, and now you can see we have our layer in here. So we have the original one, which is our raw file, and then we have our TIFF file, which is the one that we edited. If we hit Command E again, we can decide to edit the original, and that will just open up our Photoshop file again. Click update because we already have it open, but it won't change anything because this is what we just had already. So that's a way to open up again. If we close it, we still have it inside of Lightroom. Lightroom has remembered what we did, so that is perfect as the library as well. I hope this helped you in some ways, and now you know how to remove subjects using Photoshop. I hope to catch you in the next one. Until then, take care.